Hey, everybody. Welcome to 10 Good Minutes. I wanted to talk today about an idea that I've been kind of kicking around a little bit, and I wanted to focus on the idea of a confound. And a confound in an experiment is some variable that you perhaps are not totally aware of that is skewing the results of what you are finding, what you're seeing, etc. And by the way, I am not driving. I am simply in my car. I am actually on chaperone duty right now as the students line up in the rain and snow and slush to get their frisky fries. At any rate, I wanted to talk to you today about confounds, and those are things that are affecting a result in such a way that is unexpected, and perhaps for some reason it is undetected. And of course, I'm using this as a metaphor, the metaphor of a confound. There are all kinds of forces that are warping the results of our expectations. And so we can kind of think about this in terms of, um, you know, life outcomes or effects. And we've got these various crises that we're always talking about and we're living through. We can talk about the meaning crisis, and we can talk about the intimacy crisis, and we can talk about the fertility crisis, and we can talk about the economic crisis, and so we can kind of go on and on and on and on. And we seem to be living through this moment in which we are not entirely sure why certain things are happening or perhaps not happening. And everybody can kind of feel this. You can kind of feel that the normal course of things is no longer operative. And we're not entirely sure why. Why, for instance, does it seem impossible for a normal person to get a normal job, to have a normal life with a car and a house and a family? These kind of normal things that were taken for granted. Certainly when I was a kid growing up, I'm a Gen Xer. And now we're at this point where we're all kind of looking around with one another and wondering, well, what's going on? Why is suddenly everything out of whack? And there are a variety of different reasons. And I'm not a sociologist or an economist or anything like that. I'm just a guy who teaches poetry and pays attention to things. And I wonder if we vastly underappreciate how the inputs in this experiment of life have gone undetected, or that there are these confounds that we are not paying attention to that have had a massive effect. So, for instance, like um, swelling the workforce by roughly 50%. That's going to have a difference on economics. That's going to have a difference in earning power and purchasing power. And whenever you have more money and more power, you have more competition, which drives up the cost of things. Right? So that's one of them. Another one that we just have simply not really paid enough attention to is, the internet. The internet is, and again, I'm winning no points for being original. It's not my point here. My point is that I think we need to bring some of these things together and start considering why things are so strange. But anyway, you look at something like the internet, and how has the internet, and there are two versions of the internet I think we should consider. There's the internet that, when I first started off, you can sort of get that AOL package and do the dial up and that weird sound, and you could sort of check an email or go into a listserv. There was that sort of version of the internet, which sort of scaled up pretty quickly. Um, and but but so there's the internet. There's the sort of the landline internet, and then there's the internet that I carry around in my pocket, and I have access with me 24/7. There's something distinct about the mobile internet that is underrated. And not underrated. I think all of us know, like, oh, like I can do this with my smartphone. I can do this. I can check this social media site. I mean, everybody understands that level, but I'm trying to think through how those uh, novel forces act as confounds. They act as something that warps the expected result. So for instance, what did we think was going to happen when you suddenly reconnected everybody um, beyond a sort of a scalable meat space? I know people don't like when I say meat space, but I'm doing that provocatively on purpose. When suddenly you are connected, not just by phone or not just by a TV that you could tune on to a frequency from many many miles away, but that suddenly I am connected with both video and audio with high speed internet instantaneously, not only to somebody across town, not even somebody in my same region, but somebody across the entire country and indeed around the entire globe. Those that has a tremendous amount of pressure on something as seemingly not connected as, I don't know, dating. If you grew up in a world in which you dated people around you, which was everybody up until just a few minutes ago, you understood that depending upon if you lived in a small town or a large town, if you lived in a tight neighborhood or a suburban neighborhood, if you lived in a college town or a tech town, I mean, all these different places, you understood that your kind of prospects are essentially around you. And you could meet somebody at school and you could meet somebody at work. And again, those are still possible. I don't mean to say that those aren't. But what do you, how do you merit your own value in a world that you suddenly can see not only like this pocket of people, but that pocket of people and that pocket of people and another pocket of people, and you have sort of alternative pockets of people in other meat spaces. So that's one thing. But what about these sort of strange digital tribes that we all participate in and play around with? Suddenly, you look at something like Instagram. If you were, a good-looking, I don't know, let's say a homecoming queen in a medium-sized town, people would know who you are. But now, and so you would be competing with sort of other people. If we're talking about just in terms of dating, you're competing with other people in a sort of a rough age range in your proximate vicinity. But now you can go on to Instagram and you can project your signal as curated as you want and as um, tricked out as you want, and suddenly you could recognize that, wow, my value is not only impressive in my local spaces, but now I can see that actually my value far exceeds this, and I might be able to play in a much larger pool, and I can rank my value amongst a lot of other people. Now, interestingly enough, I contend, if we're talking about looks, if we're talking about good-looking people, and where they would go to compete with one another to sort of scale up some kind of hierarchy, you can think in terms of Hollywood. So for many 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 years, I used to make this joke when I lived in Hollywood that every year every homecoming king and every homecoming queen moved to Los Angeles to vie for modeling and acting or whatever, right? And that was a way that you could kind of do that, but it was a crapshoot, and it famously has chewed up and churned a lot of people. In fact, when I lived there, I saw it firsthand that you can be incredibly good looking, incredibly talented, and the breaks just don't go your way, and so you see people live there year after year after year, waiting to sort of be discovered. Now you can kind of do this on the internet, and so now you can see how you rank by just firing up your phone here and throwing on a flattering filter and sort of seeing what happens. Well, so what are the downstream effects of that? So it doesn't just affect the super handsome and the super pretty, the super attractive, but there's a sort of a trickle down effect that now you're just a normal person, normal looking person with normal talents, and you're just pretty basic. You're fine, but you're not winning any sort of contest. Well, all of a sudden, you are competing against an impossible sense of of an array of people that you normally would not be competing against. So I just think that's one of the kind of confounds, these novel introductions that have wrecked our social structures. Um, and I think we underrate these. Again, I'm calling them confounds. We underrate them in terms of their trickle down effect upon something as seemingly disconnected as family formation and those sort of rites of passage. You graduate, maybe you go to college, you get a job, you get married, you have some children, you sort of do this normal cycle. At least we're calling it a normal cycle, but I wonder if we're finding that it's probably or maybe not as normal as we are thinking. And it's certainly nothing normal. There is certainly nothing normal after the internet, the first kind of internet and the second kind of internet. So, anyway, my thoughts for the day, talking about confounds. Talk to you later. Bye.